This was supposed to be President Barack Obama's chance to convince the American people that the U.S. military needed to launch strikes in Syria. But instead, during interviews with 6 domestic networks, the president announced he would give diplomacy a chance.
I have instructed John Kerry to talk directly to the Russians and run this to ground. And if we can exhaust these diplomatic efforts and come up with a formula that gives the international community a verifiable, enforceable mechanism to deal with these chemical weapons in Syria, then I'm all for it.
He's crediting the Russians with the idea that Syria turn over their chemical stockpiles to the international community to be destroyed. But it wasn't the Russians' idea. It came from a seemingly off-the-cuff remark from his own Secretary of State, John Kerry, and he dismissed it as a possibility.
He could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week. Turn it over, all of it, without delay, and allow a full and total accounting for that. But he isn't about to do it.
The president's comments seem to contradict what we were hearing from even his own staff at the White House, at the State Department. They spent most of Monday trying to distance themselves from Secretary Kerry's comments, saying it wasn't an official ultimatum and trying to downplay the significance of the proposal they called Russia's idea.
That he was making a rhetorical statement about a scenario that we find highly unlikely.
It's also important to note that Syria has one of the largest stockpiles of chemical weapons in the world, spread across the country. It would certainly take time, resources, and probably a peaceful environment to deal with this.
But President Barack Obama didn't express any of those doubts just a few hours later. He did admit the American people are overwhelmingly against intervening in Syria. He doesn't have the votes in Congress, so now the vote won't happen as expected on Wednesday.
I think what we need to do is make sure that the president has the opportunity to speak to all 100 senators and all 300 million American people before we do this.
We're in Syria! The president will speak to the Senate and the American people on Tuesday, trying again to make the case for strikes in Syria. Polls show his arguments have so far been unconvincing, and if not, confusing to the majority of Americans. Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.